I'm doing women's basketball play-by-play since freshman year, so this is my 4th year of doing that. Second year of actually traveling with the team and doing the road broadcast as well.
Very cool. And how would you describe home attendance?
Home attendance, I think, would best be described as lacking. You look at the average attendance you have, and sometimes there'll be 400 or 500 people. Oftentimes it's far less than that, but there's certain games, the Gonzaga game, there are a lot more people here, even for women's. There's been a few other games, there's been a lot of people, and then there's some games where you can almost hear yourself talking over the floor, and the players can kind of turn around and look at you sometimes when you say their names. So that can be kind of awkward when you're calling a game and there's no one in the student section, and that's hard for the student athletes too, because they want to feel like they're supported, but if there's no one even in the student section, it's kind of hard to get motivated.
Yeah, do you think, I mean, this is a dumb question, but how much of a difference do you think a huge crowd makes for the game, the atmosphere, for the players?
I think it makes a huge difference because I think the best example of it this year is our women's volleyball team was having a pretty good season, and they weren't ranked in the country or anything, but San Diego came in and they were ranked, I believe, 18th in the country. And we had a huge crowd on hand that night. The men's volleyball team showed up. They were being loud. There were a lot of people in the stands, and we ended up beating the number 18 team in the country. And a big part of that was every time a play happened, they would just go nuts. And you could really see the girls feeding off of that emotion. So I think it does play a lot into it. You know, a lot of us can think back to, when we were playing sports and you hear the crowd go crazy, it gives you an extra rush of adrenaline. You're going to play a little bit better. There's a little bit more motivation when you feel like someone's watching what you're doing. So I think having big crowds in hand is big. And in this field house as well, everything's right on top of you. So a couple hundred people in this field house feels like a full crowd in a larger facility. So it doesn't take that many people to make a difference here.
Yeah. And then, as a student, do you think there are things at Pepperdine that kind of doesn't allow students to come to games? Because I know that a lot of people's excuse is like, oh, I'm always so busy, Pepperdine has so much stuff. Like, what do you think the reason is why kids don't come to games?
There's a couple reasons why students don't come to games. I think a lot of it at Pepperdine is everyone is involved in something at this school, be it fraternities, sororities, clubs, other club sports. Everyone's involved in their own thing, and that kind of takes them away from maybe the school spirit athletic aspect of it. Also, when it comes to school spirit, the sport that everyone rallies around for school spirit, and almost every major school, is football, and Pepperdine doesn't have that. You're unable to build a rivalry weekend where you play the same football and volleyball team in the same weekend, where everyone goes from the football game, to the basketball game or something of that nature. And not having a football team, it's hard to get people motivated to go out. And also, if you don't have a football program, the next biggest sport in college is basketball. And our men's basketball team has really, it's no secret, they've struggled for the last several years and had a really hard time getting up to that level they were at in the early 90s. And until they're able to do that, it's going to be hard for people to find the motivation to show up to games. And for the women, they've had good years in the last couple of years, making the WNIT last year. So if they have a couple more seasons of postseason appearance, I think we'll start to see larger crowds. But it needs to start with men's basketball.
Yeah. Do you think that there's anything athletics or administration or Riptide or someone needs to do to get more attendance here?
It's hard because you think of they have all kinds of giveaways and Snuggies, sandwiches, ankle socks, everything. It seems like it's almost bribing people to come to the games. In the end, the atmosphere in Firestone when it's full is a really fun one, but if you're not going to win the games or if you're going to get blown out, people feel like they've wasted their time. So I don't know from a faculty standpoint what really can be done other than just recruiting good athletes that can come in here and win games and get it done that way, because at Pepperdine it's not like you can tailgate out in the parking lot and then come into the game, so maybe that's why people don't show up either.
Do you think that all the giveaways are maybe detrimental a little bit? Because I know that, at least with the Snuggie game from what I heard, because I couldn't go, that people only came for the Snuggies, and then they gave them all the time, and then once they got their Snuggies, they were out of it. And then now they're trying to do give something away at the beginning, like a Willie's burrito, and then kind of wait to the end to give away like a bobblehead or something.
Yeah, I agree. For the Snuggie game, it seemed like, oh, there's a lot of people here for this game, and then everyone, you see them grabbing their Snuggies and hitting the road. And I think that it's a little bit of a slap in the face to the athletes. When that happens, they see everyone show up and they're like, oh, they just want the stuff. They don't want to even see us. And that was a good game, that was happening for a while there, but it almost like the game didn't matter, even though there was a good game going on the floor. You'd assume that if you're giving stuff away, people are going to show up, they'll be captivated by the game and want to stick around just to see what's going on. But if they can't even be captivated by the moment, I'm not really sure what they can do beyond that.
And then you travel with the team, so you've been to other sites. How does their attendance at those games compared to ours? Is it like the same? Because I know that the other schools that we play at WCC, they don't have football. They just have basketball as their big thing.
Right. On the road games I've been to, inside the WCC and outside the WCC, attendance at women's basketball games across the board, I think, is really not that good. There was a pretty decent crowd in Nevada, but when you go up to Gonzaga, they pack that house up there. It's a huge stadium, and they fill it up. I was astonished last year, and I went really, you walk in there for a women's basketball game, and it's completely full. The whole town shows up for a women's basketball game, and I think that contributes a lot to why players want to show up there and why they want to sign on for that team, for Coach Graves, and play up there, because they know they're in a winning environment and they have the support of the town behind them. And I think that's a big thing here in Malibu. The support of the community in Malibu, sometimes from outside the Pepperdine community, really just doesn't seem to be there.
And then now with the renovations that are supposed to be happening, and they're supposed to redo the firehouse right now. Do you think, what kind of difference do you think that's going to make?
I think that will make a big difference, because a lot of the things, when people come to this school, everyone comes into this facility for convocation, and they're like, oh, my high school had a better gym than this university does. And really, the only facility probably worse than Firestone is what they have up in San Francisco at War Memorial Gym. I would say is probably worse than Firestone. But beyond that, the other schools in the conference have very nice facilities. And if you have a nicer facility, a couple things are going to happen. You're going to get more donors, you're going to get more money, and you're going to get students who are going to want to come here, because you're going to have better workout facilities, better game time facilities. And when they see that, they think they're part of a winning environment automatically just by looking at it without even experiencing it. And that's going to make better athletes sign on to the program.